I'm Jorge, and I'll share with you one of the many paranormal experiences that have happened to me over the years I've worked as a taxi driver. This one was the most intense, in my opinion, having been in this line of work for 20 years. This incident occurred when I had just started. I was working in my taxi in Aguascalientes that night. I remember dropping someone off at the airport where I picked up another fare, a man who had just arrived in town and wanted a ride to his hotel. He was accompanied by a very white, almost pale woman dressed in very elegant black attire. He was also dressed in a very elegant suit, clearly a businessman, as he also carried a briefcase. First, she got in while the gentleman stored his suitcase in the trunk. Then, he got into the taxi and was on his cell phone talking to someone about work, discussing only business matters. The woman was very quiet and still. I must say I hardly saw her face, as she had her head bowed the whole time. The gentleman ended his call and asked me how much longer it would be to reach the hotel, as he had a business dinner at 8 and needed to arrive on time. I told him we were close. As I glanced at my phone to check the time and assured him, "Don't worry, you and your wife will still have time to get ready," he responded, "My wife? I came alone. Besides, I'm divorced." At that, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was no one there but the gentleman. The woman who had gotten in with him was gone. She had disappeared. I nearly crashed from the shock. The gentleman, a bit annoyed, told me to be careful. I apologized, saying I didn't know what had happened to me. I chose not to mention the woman I had seen get in. I preferred to keep silent, as I was also a bit in shock. Somehow, we reached his destination. The gentleman paid me, took his suitcase, and entered his hotel alone. I left and decided to go home, not wanting to work anymore that night, as I was very confused and nervous. The next day, a detective from the prosecutor's office knocked on my door, saying he had some questions about a person I had dropped off at that hotel the previous night. They had found me through security camera footage, which had captured my license plates. He asked if I had dropped off Mr. Velasquez at the hotel the previous night, showing me his photo. I confirmed that I had, and asked what had happened. He told me that Mr. Velasquez had been found dead that morning in his hotel room, that someone had entered, avoiding the cameras, and had taken his life. He inquired if I had heard anything unusual in the phone call or to recount everything we had discussed. I only mentioned our brief conversation, and that he had told me about his dinner that night, omitting, of course, the part about the woman, as that was hard to believe. The detective left, and I never heard anything more about the case until a few weeks later, when the hotel's security camera footage went viral. It showed the man getting out of my taxi, but what caught my attention and terrified people was that behind him, you could see a black shadow also getting out of my taxi. I knew it was that woman, or whatever it was. At that point, I knew it wasn't human. People theorized it was death itself that had come for him, but that's something we'll never know. Telling this story still gives me goosebumps. I hope you enjoyed it. Good night to everyone. My name is Carlos Contreras, and I am currently a taxi driver in the state of Mexico. This story isn't about the paranormal, but I promise you it's far more terrifying than anything of that sort. One night, after dropping off a lady at her home, I turned the corner and saw a vacant lot where I parked for a moment to answer a call. Just as I was about to leave, a man emerged from that lot carrying a large, worn suitcase. He looked well-dressed and generally presentable, not like a vagrant or anything similar. He approached my taxi and asked if I was available, needing a ride home. I hesitated, honestly unsure about why he had come from that vacant lot. He noticed my hesitation and, laughing with a kind voice, explained he had been relieving himself there. I hadn't asked, but for some reason he felt the need to tell me. I told him to get in. He loaded his suitcase into the trunk, gave me the address, and I started driving. The man seemed nervous, constantly shifting his legs and looking around. To break the ice, I asked if he was coming from a trip. He took a moment to reply, then said, "No, I'm moving." I tried to keep the conversation going, but it was clear he didn't want to talk anymore, so I just focused on driving. We were on an avenue that's usually busy, but it was late and there weren't many cars. Suddenly I heard screams and banging coming from the trunk. I looked at the man through the rearview mirror and he told me to stop. But stopping wasn't an option since we were on the avenue. I asked what on earth was going on. What was in that suitcase? He opened the door and jumped out. Since we weren't going fast, he wasn't hurt. He got up and ran off in the opposite direction, narrowly avoiding being hit by a car, but managed to get off the avenue. I immediately parked and rushed to open the trunk. The suitcase was partially open, but no one was screaming or moving anymore. I opened the suitcase to find a girl with severe injuries unconscious. I immediately called the police and an ambulance. They arrived quickly and took the girl to get medical attention. I gave my statement to the police and then went home, deeply shaken. I couldn't sleep all night. A few days passed, and I saw the news about the girl. She had stated that the man was her ex-boyfriend who had tricked her into going to the vacant lot and then tried to kill her. He hadn't realized she was still alive when he put her in the suitcase. The man was still at large, but a few days later, they found him in Jalisco. He's now behind bars. As I said, this wasn't a paranormal event, but to me, the fact that these things happen every day is far more terrifying. Thank you all for watching this video. I invite you to like and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying content.